Yeah, so I have about 4 minutes today, and I'm going to talk to you about a new artwork called The Literary Operator, which is being commissioned by Lighthouse. It's a collaboration between Jeff and myself. Jeff's in the audience. And we're sort of showing a preview of it today. Think of it as like a cover mount demo from an old computer magazine. The full project, or rather, with the edges sanded off, will be displayed at Brighton Digital Late at the museum on the 26th of September. But everybody here is getting a sneak preview. So as Anna's mentioned, Jeff's been writing these tiny, tiny short stories that fit in pretty much a single tweet. It sort of began on Twitter. You can find them at, I believe it's microspores.tumblr.com. And the purpose of the project was to take an individual spore and then reinterpret it in a medium of my choice, really. And I got this big bundle of spores, and I went through them, and I picked out one. After the Babel Towers attack, lo-fi operators worked the edges of the language, forging new phrases from the fragments of literature. They filled boxes with word shards in the hope of recreating lost stories. So the literary operator is a work based on this story. It's a device. It works the edges of language, forging new work out of old. We have some historical context for it. A historian writes, and I quote, "In the aftermath of the attack on the Babel Towers, language was destroyed, or at best fragmented. Books and electronic files were rendered useless, empty of narrative. A few word shards remained here and there, scattered among the debris. Our ancestors built devices to find these intact phrases. We can imagine them wandering at dusk across the desolation of word zero, waiting for the telltale glow of the light which indicated a viable text had been found. However, the explosion infected language at the deepest level, and meaning itself had been pulled apart and reformed into new shapes. Despite these difficulties, the lo-fi operators collected their favorite fragments and slowly pieced them together to make up sentences and, later on, paragraphs. It was painstaking work. They were often of a lowly status, these collectors, designated as scavengers. And yet, slowly, over the decades that followed, whole stories started to emerge once more from the memories of those smoking ruins. Nothing can ever be the same, of course, and the post-Babel literature was very different from the one that prevailed before the attacks. One fact remains: that we can speak or write at all today is down to those long-ago pioneers with their lowly homemade devices. Well, we have one of them with us in the lobby, this ramshackle, hand-built device that tries to generate new language from old. The puck that you can see in the foreground attached to the device is passed over the source book's spine, and the device attempts to generate new prose from the language within the book. A few seconds later, the thinking light goes out, and the printer on the front of the operator spits out a new passage generated from the source book's text. This may or may not be what the operator hoped for. Our device resembles a traditional one in most regards. The battery pack no longer works. You can see it's a relatively portable device, so we're having to power ours off the mains. And unfortunately, not all text is really very viable for processing by it. It's only functioned with a small fraction of the books we've tested it with, but we've brought some of them with us for you to explore. It's a very strange object for me, because this isn't design fiction. This is just fiction. It's an entirely fictional object. It's also an entirely real object because it's sitting in the lobby throughout the lunch break for you to play with. And you have to hold both those ideas in your head all at once. So that's it. And that's the literary operator. I'll be there, and you can talk to me about it. There's also a website explaining a bit more about it. And on the 26th, you'll be able to see more of it, and Jeff reading some more of the background behind it and other spores at Brighton Digital Festival. So that's that. I'll see you outside.